in the North End, refer them to David or invite them to the Taste of Enrichment events that we have planned, and they're planned for February. Is that right?
6th, 13th, and 20th.
Okay, there you go. And so David will talk more about that later. And you don't need this, do you?
No, sir.
These slides will see out of it.
Oh, I'm going to start by
I always say that.
Christy. I think I'm a little short, so do the Halsteads remind sharing?
Sure.
Thank you.
So how do you spell your first name?
S-E-L-D-E-N.
Like the furniture?
Yes, but I'm not related.
That's okay. David, it's like David. Those are easy names.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right, Mr. Lightfoot?
And the opposite sort of happened is that
I
people
may
tried
be
to
just
see
a
how high
little
they could get
short,
their one
so if you two could share, I know you are related.
Yes.
Perhaps, if that would be kind of
Unless are
food.
we supposed to write on this though?
Yeah, there is a second thing there. Well, you can have a separate piece of paper.
I apologize in advance. I'm going to have to leave at about 11:30.
Oh, for God's sakes, Earl, I was going to say all these nice things about you. Holy okay.
Yeah, by 11:29.
Except your weakness, let it go.
Yeah.
She knows I'm also going to do too. So I think I have to share. Here, he's the new guy. That's what he's the new guy. No, I'll get one. I was short somehow. I don't know what happened.
Do you want us to share?
What happened is I took this assessment and said you don't plan well enough ahead of time in the future.
Give this back to him. You don't have enough? That's okay. We'll share.
Okay, thank you, Ron.
Naturally great. Oh, he's a new person.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
I have enough red paper though. That one is good. Look at Earl on his phone already. It's okay. I don't take offense, Earl. Okay, now this one I do have enough for each one of you because you're going to need an individual sheet for this. Oh. This you will need your own sheet.
I don't have any places left over there. Thanks for saying Dr. Brooke.
Good job for the new year. Nice. Rock and roll. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I want to, Earl has to leave early, so I'm going to wrap up early to make sure that I get, just kidding, he goes. Don't give me that kind of pressure. Yeah. Or as I like to call Earl, John Grisham. Anyway, you should all have a handout. I am a little short for some reason. I had 15 in mind rather than 20 or 25. So, and there will be a second page on there that's got a copy of the Gratitude Journal. And I will tell you this right now, we're going to do a little exercise on the Gratitude Journal, and there's a copy of it on the second page. So thank you, Ron, for sharing. But if you're interested too, I sell these for $15, and today I'm going to sell them for $10. And you can make an entry or two, and then we're going to do that exercise a little bit. So keep that in mind. But so I'm going to be about 45 minutes to an hour, give or take. And I'm very much like people that take or get in within the time limit, if you will, start on time, finish on time, and so forth. So let me just start out by saying the day that changed my life was September 29th, 1998. It's about 14 years ago. And it started out like any other day. I woke up about 6 o'clock. I looked over in bed, and my wife wasn't there. And I thought, that's strange. I wonder where Dana is. And just about then, my 4-year-old son, Connor, comes in and says, "Where's Mom?" And I don't know. So we go and pop out in the hallway, and Kyle gets up. Kyle's 14. "Where's Mom?" I don't know. So we look in a couple of rooms. We walk down the hallway, and I glance downstairs, and I see her face down in front of the washer and dryer. And she's kind of sprawled, kind of legs and arms out at a weird angle. So I go ripping down there, and I turn her over, and there's all this stuff coming out of her mouth and nose. It's a horrific sight. And Connor starts crying, and Kyle goes up and calls the police. And within about probably 4 or 5 minutes, there were 20 people in our house. Medic, fire people, police, everybody. It was just teeming with it. And they took her out into the living room and laid her down. And it's just the most surrealistic thing I'd ever seen in my life. And there's tubes and wires and those paddles and all this kind of stuff. And her back is arching up and this kind of thing. And for any of you in this room that have ever been through a traumatic event like this, or anything even similar, one of the things I noticed immediately in this state of shock was how time loses all measure. And I can remember, like, this was 14 years ago, and I can remember this like 30 seconds ago when this little short gal comes up to me with a fire person, and she goes, "Mr. Brooke, we've been working on your wife for an hour and a half, and we still don't have a heartbeat. Would you like us to continue?" And I don't think before in my life, and I hope never again, will I ever have to make a life and death decision. And I looked at her and I said, "You can stop." Because even in a state of shock, if somebody has another heartbeat for an hour and a half, I'm sure they're brain dead, and it was a lost cause. So I'm trying to control Connor and Kyle. Connor's hysterical, or Kyle. And at some point, about friends were over there. The place was, it was just, again, surrealistic. It's something I never thought I'd have to experience in my life. And I remember clearly about 2 or 3 days later understanding how shock works. Because shock is a way the body protects itself. But within about 2 or 3 days, I realized this was not a bad dream. This is actually happening to me. And I walked upstairs, and I walked out on this little deck we had. We lived by Green Lake. And I looked kind of out to the sky, and I thought, now I see why people kill themselves. And I just thought, and I remember pinching myself and just going, I'm just a little, there's just skin and bone and cartilage, and I'm just a little human being, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle this. And it struck me in such a way that then about a minute or two later, I thought, but I wouldn't kill myself though. I can't do this to these 2 boys. And what had made this such a traumatic event for me is the things that had happened prior to this. I had lost so many people in my life. This was merely the worst day of my life, but there was another 10 to 20 people that had died that dramatically affected me. My mother was manic depressive, and I remember all during high school, Queen Anne High School, University of Washington, she threatened suicide all the time. And she'd shake the bottle. "David, I have the pills right here. I will kill myself if you don't come over right now." And I was working at the bookstore, and I'd tell Mr. Gallup, I need to leave, my mom's sick. So I'd run over there. Well, then she gets cancer and dies in 9 months. And then about several years later, my father commits suicide. And he was a very prominent, powerful attorney. I was very proud to be his son. Everybody knew Bob Brooke. And even to this day, I just can't reconcile what it must be like to go get a shotgun, go to Fred Meyer and buy the shells, and then drive out to some gravel pit in Monroe, load this gun, turn around. I mean, it just was beyond what I could believe. But what had happened to me, and this is where my road to gratitude really started, and why this has become so impactful for me, and why I'm so passionate about the subject and talking to people as much as I can, is the night I graduated from high school, my 2 best buddies died in a car accident on Dexter, right by the Swedish Club. Both burned and lived. Dan lived for about 30 days, and Brad lived for about 60 days. Brothers, 2 very, very close friends. 2 or 3 of my best buddies in Vietnam. And it just kept going on and on. My sister-in-law, a couple of gals I had dated, and this was the part that got me the most. And this is where gratitude, I really bring it back to a gratitude journal and how we have to position ourselves in life. is because of the 20 names I could rattle off just like this. And that's my sister-in-law, that's my mom, that's my dad, that's Dana, my wife, and so forth. At least half of them died of their own hand. And I'm talking suicide, I'm talking frying their liver with booze or prescription pills. And in the case of Dana, it was a prescription pill overdose. And one of the things, and I may have mentioned it last week during my brief, just little forum piece about 1 in 20, and you have to decide, are you the 1 or are you the 19? And prior to this, Dana had been arrested for prescription fraud. And again, I look at this group, and we were talking about earlier, the unbelievable people I've met since I met Barry and so forth. I've never seen somebody like this before. I'd never seen anybody in handcuffs, much less my wife. And we had met at Nordstrom, and she was a beautiful young lady, tall, blonde. Our first date was running Green Lake. It wasn't a drink, or it wasn't lattes or anything like that. And she was 38 years old when she died. And so she'd gone to her prescription fraud for being arrested. We had to deal with that. And then she was in treatment 3 different times for about a month each up in Providence and Everett. So I go up and I talk to this guy, Dr. Dickinson. Are you David Brooke? Are you Dana's husband? Yes, I am. Well, please come right in. He says, I've been doing this for 35 years. He said, you see all those people out there? There's about 20, 25 people, and it was all he said, there's a doctor, there's an attorney, there's your wife, there's so-and-so. And to kind of make you feel better that this addiction, and it does, it cuts across all socioeconomic aspects of life. But he said, but I need to let you know what you're up against. And he said, Dana and all those people out there, 1 out of 20 will make it back to a normal life. 1, that's it. And he says, of the 19 that don't, about half of them will be dead within a year. And Dana was dead 6 months later. So it really hit me, and I think, and this is why I started to think about, a lot of it depends on how you look at things. And gratitude, and I was just, thank you, Pete, again, for having everybody say what they're grateful for today. It just frames it. Ron mentioned health, and there's nothing more important, but there's all these it's Friday, as Rob said. You know, it's just, there's so many things to be grateful for. But I realize it's how you look at things. And unfortunately for me, it was not only losing Dana, but when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I was worth about $2 or $3 million. I'd learned how to fly. I bought an airplane. I was a hydroplane racer. I did all these crazy things because I bought these houses and fixed them up, and then refinanced them and sold them and everything. So, and I was also running a real fancy clothing store downtown. But when Dana died, that was on September 29th, 98, so later on, I lost everything. It wasn't just her. She had never gone in to do our life insurance thing because she kept putting it off. Well, you have to check your blood and your urine and that kind of thing, and guess what would have happened? Because I was blindsided by this. I didn't know that ultimately she would die from all this, but we'll get the insurance. So we had no insurance. So I lost the business I had, I lost Dana, I lost the house we had, and I lost everything we ever had. And I ended up, a buddy of mine calls me and it says, you want to come and I sent Kyle to live with his grandparents just because they could help out because it was really tough for me. And I said, he says, do you want to have, can you and Connor, you want to come and stay with me for a while? I said, Jim, I really appreciate it. You don't know what this means to me. So I take my little 5-year-old and we moved to Jim's apartment. And Jim has a little duplex in Kirkland. And he's so gracious. He's a very close friend, always has been, always will be. And he says, you can sleep in my bed. And I said, I'm not doing that. I'm so appreciative of you having me here. And he says, well, then you want to sleep on the couch. And so I sleep on the couch, and it's one of these couches that goes backwards. So I kept squishing Connor. You know, I'd like roll into Connor like the Pillsbury Doughboy. That was me. And I go, this isn't working. And so Connor's, Dad, you're squishing me. He says, just lost my mom a few months ago, for Christ's sake. And so we get this piece of foam, and all I can find, it's like right behind Margaret. There's just this little strip of land. And I put the little camping foam in the sleeping bag, and I just roll it down. And Connor and I slide into the sleeping bag. And we're both just shivering. And I just looked to the sky, and I just went, so it's come to this. The once almighty Mr. Millionaire, Mr. His Own Airplane, all this kind of stuff. And you're sleeping in a sleeping bag with not a dime to your name. And not to mention, it's actually the reverse, because creditors came after us and so forth. So, but I thought, well, what are you going to do? You're going to have to find something. Because I'm not going to kill myself. And I'm going to find something that's going to work. And in this world, all we have are tons and tons of negative coping mechanisms. And as I said, they killed half of the people that had already died in my life. And it's booze, and it's pills, and it's smoke, and it's dope, and it's crack, and it's whack, and all that kind of, it's just unbelievable. And many of my friends, fraternity brothers and others, still can't believe I'm not living under the viaduct. And I said, well, you know, I gotta raise these 2 boys. So it really is how you look at it, and I think that's the most important thing. So let me just start. I have several exercises, and as I said, I'm only going to be about 45, 50 minutes. But I'd like you to all stand up for a second, which is always good because that gets the blood going a little bit. Some of you may have seen this before, but I love this one because it really is about how we view things. So I'd like you to reach up as high as you can and take your finger and start circling in a clockwise fashion. If you need to look at the clock, there's one over there. That's the way that goes. And then you should keep going in a clockwise fashion. Bring it down to about eye level, and then bring it down to your waist level. Now, which way is your finger going? Pete, yours is still going clockwise. What's up with that?
How did you do that?
Okay, you can sit down. It's how you look at it. Because when you look at it up here, it's clockwise. When you look at it down here, it's counterclockwise. And so that's one of those things that comes down to how you look at it. And I will mention that there's 5 things I'm going to talk about today. The first thing about is embracing gratitude and understanding the power of gratitude. Now, in order to do that, you've also got to be aware of the fact that it takes as long as it takes, and you just can't give up. I heard something recently that was wherever you are right now is exactly where you're supposed to be. And I truly, truly believe that. And so you have to embrace that. And you have to think about, there's so many examples. Walt Disney went to 300 banks, and Sylvester Stallone went to tons and tons of people to get financing for Rocky, and Colonel Sanders didn't even start KFC till he was 62 or 63. But there's so many aspects of not giving up. And I remember one of the best examples I can tell you is I learned how to fly. And I was really paying attention to my instructors. A little later I want to talk about listening, because I think listening is so important. Margaret, Ron, Sharon, Earl, Rick, Nyash, Christy, Kathy Clayton Coaching. I love that part. Patty, Tony, Selden, David, Nick, Rob, Terry, Jean, and Fu. And it's so important because people really like it when you remember their names. But you got to listen too. You have to really listen carefully. And we don't do a good enough job on that. So when I was learning how to fly, I really listened. And I learned to really listen carefully. I was at Rotary the other day. I was talking to a friend, and another guy comes up and he says to my friend Mark, so didn't you go on a trip lately? And Mark goes, yeah, I just got back from the Philippines. And the S on Philippines wasn't out of Mark's mouth when this guy goes, oh, that's so unbelievable. In fact, we just took a trip. We were over in the South Seas. And he's like 10 minutes later, he's still going. And it was all I could do. It's all I could do to just, we're not talking about you. We're talking about him. You asked him about your trip. And this guy goes off on this big thing about the South Seas. So we have to listen.
Then what did he do?
I just turned away and we went like this. Anyway, it amazed me because you can't learn anything when you're talking. And so I was listening to these flight instructors over the years, and I really paid attention, and I've read a lot of NTSB reports about people that had died, and it's very morbid, but it teaches you how to be a good pilot. And I took a couple of friends, and we were over ocean shores. And all of a sudden, I'm looking to land, and there was a strip that was right down in the golf course. And I was in the clouds. I don't know what happened. And to make matters worse, it was at night. So I was completely encased in fog. And I had not gotten my instrument rating at that point. And for those of you that know anything about flying, if you're in the clouds, you're in trouble. And people always want to know where's the parachute and all these different things, when in fact weather is about 90% of the reasons that pilots and pilot air don't make it. So I'm just panicking, and they're all going, they're like laughing and thinking this is funny. We're going to die. So I don't know if we're going to hit a mountain, another plane. I'm confused. I'm trying to call Seattle Center. I can't reach them. You have no point of reference. And this is what happened to John Kennedy Jr. And it's so sad because it was a kind of a perfect storm of being in a hurry and not having enough experience and so forth. So I turn around, I get smart, and I turn around to Seattle, and I'm pulling back on the yoke because I'm so scared. I don't think any of these guys know this to this day, how scared I was. I pull up to the point now the stall horn is starting to go on, because that means the plane's going to stall. Because you're so afraid. You just want to get above the clouds. And we're still in the clouds. It's just like somebody packs snow when you get in your car and there's snow packed on it. That's what it's like. So it was just the most horrific thing. And I'm thinking, I'm thinking what all those instructors said, and I'm trying to call center, and then the guys they're yelling and laughing, and they think it's funny. And then I look, and I'm in a 60-degree bank turn to the right, and I think I'm straight and level. Oh. So now I have vertigo. So now I look at this, and here's the instruments are saying this, so I'm going, what everybody tells you, the instruments are wrong, I'm right.
Oh, no.
Well, the instructor said, you're going to have that happen. So I turn it back straight, and now I feel like I'm like this. You know, and this is taking forever, and so then we're at 5,000, 6,000, 7, 8, 9, 10,000 feet. We're still in the clouds. And most small planes are in the 3 to 5,000 range, give or take. So at about 11,000 feet, almost to 12. You need oxygen at 12,000. We pop out of the clouds. I can see Seattle, the Space Needle in the distance, and I think we ought to go to the Red Robin. What do you guys think? let's just bag ocean shores, and that sounds great to me, and I'm just sweating bullets and stuff. But what it made me think about is you just can't give up. And I have a ton of stories, and I don't have a lot of time today, but I have a ton that go back to not giving up. And the fact that I stuck with it, I'm here today, otherwise I wouldn't be here. And I've known pilots that have died. And again, back to the John Kennedy thing and so forth. So next exercise, take a piece of paper. I just want to have one thing, and I'm going to ask a couple of people to share that you stuck with, that maybe not that serious, and I'm going to give you 1 minute, but maybe something that really dramatically changed your life, and the common thread was you didn't give up on it. If you can't think of it, that's fine. I'm just going to have a couple of examples I want. No, red paper is special. Okay, some of you may be writing. Would anybody like to share a dramatic or big thing that they stuck with and it really changed their life or made a big difference? Christy?
I have 2 personal relationships. One is my sister, who she has been obese her whole entire life, and it's made her miserable, and it's made her a miserable person. And we have never had a good relationship. And probably about 7 years ago, I looked at her and I said, we are seriously going to need each other someday. Because my parents are 82 and they're not always going to be there. She's alone. She's always been alone. And we have slowly worked our way toward friendship. And you know, through things like instigating a sister's weekend. We go away for a long weekend every year now. And she, but it's not just that it's changed my life, it's changed her life as well. And that's pretty cool. And I have another personal relationship that has been tested and tested and tested and tested. And at this point, sticking with it, it's really, really made a huge difference. And it's valuable and worthwhile and amazing.
Excellent. Very nice. Margaret?
I had 2 situations happen within a year that tested me. First, I was laid off from IBM. And that was my big career. And then my husband got cancer and died within 8 months. And it just hit, everything hit me very hard. And what I found was the right people came along to comfort and support and help me through things. That I haven't been a person who asks for help particularly, but sometimes you're in a situation and you have to ask, and people are there. I was amazed. So I
Wow.
got through that, and I do share that with other widows that I meet along the way.
How long ago did your husband die?
About 15 years.
Oh, we should talk. So when you're at Safeway and they go, would you like help out, you say no?
No, I say yes.
Okay.
It depends how many
Good.
bags I have.
That's good. That's good. When Dana passed away, I was, and anytime somebody's lost somebody, and we do have to talk, it's amazing. Had all these close friends, and I know they're all going to be really helpful. One of them
No,
came.
they're not.
Thank you for supporting it. You're exactly right. One of them comes up to me at the funeral. I'm holding Connor, he's 4.5, and says, I know exactly how you feel. We once lost a puppy.
Oh.
And what's that old line about you can't make up stuff that good?
Oh.
So, but somebody else told me, and you obviously experienced this, Margaret, and I did as well. Let's not focus on those close friends of mine, some of the people that didn't come through for us. How about some of those surprises? Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I had some incredible surprises that were just sort of not as close a friend or acquaintance or sort of more shirt tail, came through in just the biggest way.
That's right.
And what a great thing to focus on.
So I learned a lot about letting go and accepting what happens.
Yeah,
'Cause
excellent.
I have come from being a place of a control person, and I know that's not. After you lose your spouse, you don't control anything much.
I knew why I liked you. We have a very similar DNA. Anybody else?
I'm sorry.
Tony.
Yeah, mine's more like your airplane story, I think. I used to do a lot of surfing and went down to Orange County in California, and I loved a place called Trestles. Unfortunately, Trestles was on a marine base, and you had to sneak down to the water and then paddle like hell and get out where the waves are. Best waves in California. Well, we did, and I was surfing with a buddy of mine that I always surfed with, and we were out there, and we were waiting for waves, and we saw a bunch of Jeeps pull up, and the Marines get out of their Jeeps, and they're yelling at us, you know. We're out pretty far. So I looked at Dean, that's my buddy, and I said, you know, I think we're kind of screwed. They're going to throw us in they've been throwing surfers in jail, you know. So I said, well, let's just sit here for a while. And then the damn Marines pulled their guns out.
Holy old cow.
And we're going, boom, boom. And the bullets were like,
Oh
flying
my
around
God.
us, you know. And I thought, well, maybe this is the end of our lives.
Wow.
So Dean says there's only one way out of this, because they're just going to keep doing this. He said, we've got to paddle 7 miles to another cove, because there was all these cliffs along after Trestles. And we did. And we never gave up. We were paddling.
Gosh, wow.
Oh my God, it just went on forever. We finally came into another cove, and we stopped paddling and surfed the rest of the way in. And that's my story.
Excellent, fantastic.
Don't
As-
give up.
Don't give up, and it takes as long as it takes. Mr. Pete, would you do me a favor?
I'd be happy to.
Would you take this basket and give everybody's card, because I want to give away a book, not a journal, a book. So if you take out your cards, and by the way, I do like to put people on my mailing list for my weekly video. So if you don't want to be in my mailing list, just put an X on your card. But I do like to send out a video every Monday. It's a 2-minute gratitude video. And the reason that I wanted to talk about this is because I barely know Earl, but the reason I like to give him a hard time is because I'm jealous. I'm going to catch up to him at some point. And but I'm trying. I'm trying very hard. And here's a good example, and this is the book I'm going to give away. That's why I wanted to do it at this point, because this is about not giving up as well. Now, I've started to do some other books. I've done my journal. I have another journal coming out. I have a little small book called Gratitude Nuggets. I do this when I do keynotes, and I give it away to everybody, and I mentioned that last week. But this is one of the ones that kind of started for me a couple years ago, and this is about not giving up as well. And I know whether it's Earl or the other people in this room that have done books, you know what it takes. And it's a really, really unbelievably hard process, and from the writing to staying in the right frame of mind to the editing and so forth. Well, I had heard about this project, and there was a gal out of California, and she said, we're doing the Gratitude Book Project. And it's going to be individual stories of gratitude, celebrating 365 days of gratitude, so obviously one story for every day of the year. So this was several years ago. So I started sending in stories, and I'd get the email rejected. Just as, no thank you. And I just, okay. And so I went, oh, that's okay. I'll just keep trying, because what am I teaching here, for gosh sakes? You can't give up. And like, thankfully, Tony didn't move left to right. Otherwise, one of those bullets could have been. You got to stay the course here. So I believe it was 27 or 28 entries that I sent in about gratitude. When I remember seeing that email that said your entry's been accepted, and it was for September 29th, and it was survival gratitude. And I wrote here, September 29th started like any other day, except after I called her name throughout the house, my wife didn't answer. I found her lying on the floor in the downstairs laundry room. After rushing to her side, I realized she was not breathing. I called 911 and immediately called CPR. Well, you've heard the rest of the story. It's very short. These are just 350 words. The human spirit can survive, but it helps to have tools to assist in the process. They say that time heals, and it does. But gratitude can truly propel you to a life of renewed happiness and joy. I never thought I'd have any happiness or joy the rest of my life, especially those two young boys. So this came out a couple years ago, and in the self-help, within about 1 week, it went to Amazon bestseller status. And I thought, boy, there's a case about never giving up, is that when you really just, 27 or 28 entries, and seeing those emails, rejected, it was like sorry or something like that. So I'm one of about 200 or 300 authors that were in this, but I've gotten a lot of comments on this, and people have been really, very, very appreciative of that. And again, one story every day. So let's see, who's I'll pick one myself. That'll be, otherwise we won't have a, oh, it's my favorite. What do I always say? David Brooke coaching. Kathy Clayton coaching. So there's something about the way you say that I just love. You bet. So now, if we're talking about embracing gratitude, and one of the reasons why I go into these stories, and they're very dramatic, and even the thing with the shotgun with my father and everything, is I've never been the kind of person that teaches out of a book. It's all life experiences. And I look at all these shoes here. None of us can walk in exactly the same paths, but we can walk in parallel paths. And I went to a support group for 2.5 years, and that was one of the huge pieces. And Margaret, I do want to chat with you about your situation or your experience too, to compare notes. Every Tuesday night, my name's Dave Brooke, my wife was named Dana. She died September 29th, 1998. We have 2 boys, Connor's 4, Kyle's 14. And you'd watch these heads going like this. And it was the most validating, the most encouraging thing. Total strangers you became friends with. But along the way, after you understand gratitude, and you understand it takes as long as it takes, and you can't give up, you got to make some room in your brain. Because I think by the time we're 6 or 7 years old, we get 80,000 negative images or thoughts or something. It's just these incredible statistics about what we're dealing with. So one of the ways I like to clear out our brain is this little exercise we're going to do next. So now take your red piece of paper, and when we think about red, we think about stop versus go. And I'm going to give you about 3 minutes for this. And the other reason I like red, even though there's some, excuse me, some married couples here, is your partner cannot see what you're writing. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to write down all the things in your life. Only 3 minutes. You better prioritize them. You're pissed off about that you screwed up on. Those things that you just are so irritated with. Why did I ever this, that, whatever. It doesn't. I don't care what it is. Write as fast as you can, because you have 3 minutes. Because this is garbage stuff that's hanging around in your brain. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Many people always raise their hand, I'm going to need a lot more time. And I go, well,
Got more red paper?
yeah, more red paper. This is just a 3 minute. And then there's always somebody, I have nothing to write, which I'm jealous. So 3 minutes. Messed up, pissed off, irritated, mistakes, bad judgments, you name it.
I gotta leave. Okay. Take my wife to court.
Okay. Rick's going to join us. I talked to him yesterday.
Okay, good.
So it's hard to get some more.
Well, I talked to a banker this week, and he's going to join. So we're getting more.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, David. coffee too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, about 1 more minute. Okay, go ahead and wrap up your last one, please. And then for those of you that are finished or are wrapping it up, I would like you just to silently, that's why nobody, if I catch anybody looking at somebody else's, by the way, there's going to be trouble, because these are personal. Just kidding. Reread it one more time, just silently to yourself. Because I'll guarantee you some of those are bigger goof ups than the rest, but just reread it one more time, just silently. Okay, so in order to clear out our brain, it's important to learn from the past, but you really, the two most important days of your life, as you've all heard, are today and tomorrow. But I was also thinking about when we go back and get in our cars today, that windshield is about 2 feet high and it's about 4 or 5 feet wide, and then you got this rear view mirror that's about this big. And that's about the proportion that you should keep that. It's probably 50 to 1, probably for square inches or something. Pay attention to what's in front of you. Learn a little bit from the past, but get rid of it. And we oftentimes let these things become obstacles in our future, which is what we don't want to do. So this is all garbage that you need to get rid of. And this word that starts with this, and it has an O and an S and E and an R. And Terry, it's funny Terry would mention that, because that is so true. I've so carefully watched my talk, my self-talk. And to say that about yourself, nobody's ever going to advocate for you more than you are. You know, and those of us that are parents, leaders, friends, whatever our roles are, spouses, it doesn't matter in this world. If you can't really be good to yourself, who's going to really take that position for you? So this is all junk. So what I'd like you to do is I have 2 little gratitude nugget books here for who can rip that up into the most amount of pieces. And I'm talking about, I want to see a lot of pieces. You can start as soon as you want to get going. As many pieces as you can get, because that's where it should go. It's just trash. Look at Ron's already crumbling this. And then leave them in little piles right in front of you. And Mr. DeSantis,
yes,
you will be the judge of who has the most pieces. Look at Rob already. He's got a technique going there. I love that.
Yeah,
It's going to be kind of a visual inspection by Mr. DeSantis.
128 pieces right here.
Yeah, exactly.
2 to the something.
2 to the something.
Okay, about 30 seconds more. Mr. DeSantis, you can collect them in this nice little basket. And then Foo's got a good one going there. And you can tell me, look at Nick. Nick's got a heck of a amount of kindling going there. And Kathy's got the strip technique, and she's doing that for
have 1 piece of paper, Nick?
Well, I forgot to tell you there was a time limit here too, so because we have to keep moving along. So I told you I have to get done for Earl.
So do I have to judge now?
Yep. Start going around the room. It is under, things are always under time. You know how that is. Time's up. Yep.
There's going to be a lot there.
And then just pick them up all in the basket so they don't have to. They can get rid of them. And you know who your winner is?
Yeah, I would
Okay.
say the winner is Nick.
Nick, and we get a second place too.
And the second place, oh, the second place would be Nyash.
Nyash, okay, cool.
Very good. Just right there. There you go. Take this little attention.
There you are, Nick. You bet. Nyash?
Thank you.
Good job.
Need a bigger basket.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you all.
Feels good to get rid of it.
Well, I actually used to light them on fire, and then the thing went off. That thing went off, and they came. Fire department came and everything. I was in big trouble. Had to pay for a false alarm.
Oh, are they charged for that?
Mm-hmm. And then I did a shredder, and that was pretty cool. But there's something about that visceral feeling of ripping them up too that's really good. So, all right, thank you for doing that. So, just again, as kind of a recap, and understand, I try to really express how gratitude came to my life and how it changed me, and it really did save me. And one of the keynote talks I do is called Gratitude Saved Me, and it can save you too. And saving can be anything. It can be saving your life, it can be saving your marriage, your career, your family, whatever it might be, your health. But you've got to embrace it, and it's something that is so valuable and, again, so healthy in this world of so many negatives. So once we look at that and understand that, the next thing, again, is to understand it takes as long as it takes and never give up. And I've got about all sorts of stories I can relate to that, and I'm sure all of you do as well. And we heard a couple of them today, Christine, her sister, and so on, and Tony. And you know, again, I can just see Tony. Should we dive left or right? The bullets are on both sides. You know, it's like, you know, how about we dive down? Maybe that would be better. But and then you've kind of got to do this clearing out, spring cleaning, and get rid of it, and really understand the self-talk principle. About a month or so ago, I started dating this gal. It was just sort of a random thing, and she said, "You have the best memory." She goes, "I have a terrible memory." I said, "Well, you know, you keep telling yourself that, you will have a terrible memory." You know, and it just what are you, like Dr. Phil or something? And I went, well, getting there. But anyway, the primary thing, though, that I want to make sure we spend about 10 or 15 minutes on, and then we'll wrap up, is this journal. And this was the piece that really completed the cycle, sort of, for me. It's one thing to think about gratitude, and the quote that I have in the front of this is, if you think about it, it's like a dream. If you talk about it, it inspires you. But if you write about it, it empowers you. And it's really the writing. And I think about, there's a million examples. Why do we take notes when we're talking to professors? Why don't we just, you know, watch their videotape or whatever? We take it because it gets more implanted in our brain. And one of the big, the big things that's so valuable to me with this as well is you can go back and refer to it later. I left my corporate world job working for Lowe's on the 27th of December a year ago. And I've been doing this ever since, and this is my new passion and a new website and all these exciting things that have happened. And but I thought, I wonder how I felt on the 28th of December. And I went back and looked at what I wrote about this knucklehead that was my regional manager. It was a big reason why I left. And it wasn't pretty. But of course, if you're the gratitude guy, you can't be cynical or sarcastic or anything. So people occasionally like hit me, and they just like hit me.
See, I really believe that to not acknowledge that maybe you are cynical and sarcastic, and that there is gratitude in that you're able to go to that place.
Right.
Because I think if we try and sugarcoat things, it's false.
True.
And it's not to say if you're living in that place of cynicism or sarcasm that serves you, but sometimes that's the pressure valve. Mm-hmm. And
well,
it's
a good point, and I think too, Kathy, I had a talk with a friend of mine yesterday in San Diego, a very close friend, whose son has been getting death threats. And in the wake of Newtown and things like this, you can understand. And he was really upset, and he's a very close friend. But what was interesting is that he said, "Dave, I understand what you're doing, and you realize there's a time when, like back when Dana died with C. Earl, and when I was just trying to stay alive. It was just hour to hour, day to day, you know. And then later you can look at a little bigger picture, a little more globally. And but even yesterday he said, "What am I supposed to be grateful for?" And I said, "Well, I'm real grateful for Dane. He has a father like you who cares as much as you do. who's going to take it to the police and the superintendent, all that kind of thing. And then, because people challenge me on this all the time, and I think it's funny, and if you look at everything I've been through, it'd be real easy for me to be cynical, sarcastic, negative. My father, you know, this is the person that was one half of raising me. I'd say, "Good morning, Dad. What's good about it?" And I go, "Are you kidding me?" And he would tell me, "Why are you doing this, Dave? Why are you doing that?" And he's been up there for 40 years, you know, via suicide, as I mentioned. But you choose that path. And somebody said to me one day, "Here's so-and-so, he's got it kind of tough. What's he have to be grateful for?" I go, "Is he vertical?" Yeah. And then they look at me and I go, "I got to go. You don't get it. You just don't get it. It's fine." But I'm going to keep trying, and I'm going to keep trying to make sure I get through. So, and this is why, and we're going to do this exercise in a second, but I want to tell you a little bit about my experience for this. So a buddy of mine says to me, "You need to get a gratitude journal." It's about 10, 15 years, whatever it was. And what's that? And I've heard of journals, I've heard of diaries, and he goes, "Well, you write in every day about what you're grateful for." So I got it, and I started seeing all these things happen. It just gives me the chills, all these amazing things that happened that started to manifest itself. So then I decided to design my own, which is this one, and the Brooker's Daily Gratitude Journal. And it has this very definite structure to it. And it's gratitude today is on the left side, gratitude tomorrow is on the right side. And this is like 7 minutes, 8 minutes a day, depending on how fast you write. The day, the date, and the daily number. I love this daily number. The daily number, and I explain it in the beginning, and 90% of this is just a journal, but there's a few little instructions in the beginning. The daily number, 10 is maybe the best day of your life, and 1 is one of those days where you may be looking for a bridge, or at least a friend, somebody to kind of save you. But it anchors what's happening on that day. And so you can think about it, and typically I'll write in my journal in the morning to set my tone for the day, which again I'll cover in a second. But I always start where I was yesterday. I normally reside in the 8, 9, 9.5 neighborhood. And I don't know if I've had a lot of 10s in my life. 10's a pretty big thing. That's a phenomenal day. You may have a 10 for the start of year 2013. But anyway, next, current events and special occasions. This is just here, so you don't have to have a diary too. You can write a couple of things. Went to Biz Enrich today, had coffee with Pete DeSantis. Anything you want to relate to. I'm so grateful for. Most all, if not all of these sentences should start with, "I'm so thankful for, I'm so appreciative, I'm so grateful for this, this, that, whatever." And then at the very bottom, the highlight of your day. Now, if I write this in the morning, so my highlight of my day is usually yesterday. But if you write it at the end of the day, it's what happened to you that day. What was the best thing? You can just list one thing. And then there's a little quote down at the bottom. And then the right side is gratitude tomorrow, otherwise known as your gratitude intentions. And I am telling you, this takes 7 to 8 minutes. Less than 8-minute abs. And you get in the habit of this, you will not believe what will happen. And the gratitude intentions are speaking as if it's already happened. I'm so grateful for the phenomenal 2013 I'm going to have. I'm going to speak to so many people, etc. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm already grateful for Connor successfully graduating from college, and he starts in the fall. He's graduating from high school. And so many things have happened here. Now I'll tell you a couple of quick things, and then we're going to do our exercise. When I was, gosh, it was 4 or 5 years ago, and as I battled back and saved money and had nowhere to live and all these different things that happened, I was running a real fancy bridal boutique downtown, and the gal comes up to me one day and she says, "I'm sorry, I can't afford you anymore." "What do you mean?" "Well, can you make today your last day?" I said, "Well, we had a contract." "Yeah, I know. I'm really sorry." So what am I going to do? Punch her? You know, I'm not that kind of person. I mean, just like, okay, I guess this is my last day. So now I'm out of a job, and I've been writing my journal for a long time, and I kept writing. I realized I've had some pretty big jobs running Lowe's and Nordstrom and big boxes. And so I kept writing every day. I'm so grateful for the job I'm going to have before the end of the year. I'm just thrilled. I'm just so appreciative of this job I'm going to have. It's going to be a great job. And on December 30th of that year, I got a call from Lowe's. "We'd like you to run the Mount Vernon store." And off I was. And it just goes on and on and on, the things that have happened. So, so what I'd like you to do, by the way, on your second page, I have a whatever you call it, recreation or something of the Gratitude Today page. So I'm going to have you do a little exercise. This will take 2 or 3 minutes. So does anybody want to buy one for $10, by the way? Anybody? Sharon? Margaret? Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, well, let me get a couple more here. And I'm going to have you fill out some things too. Kathy Clayton Coaching. Pete DeSantis. Yes, sir. All right, and so those of you that have the book, I want you to go to the first page where you have, I think it's page 9 or something like that, where there's the actual entry. Or is it page, yeah, I think it's page 9. No, page 8, sorry. And then those of you that have the sheet, I would like you to write down, and I realize that we did this a little bit earlier, but I just want you to write down one thing you're grateful for. Could be the same thing you covered earlier. I really appreciate Pete bringing that up. And then at the bottom, I want you to write down the highlight of your day. And it's only 11:30, so it may have been yesterday. Could have been today already. But I'd like you to write down what your highlight of your day was. And I'll give you guys just a minute or two.
This is on the tomorrow.
At the very bottom on the left, Margaret, down here. There's the highlight for there, and this is what you're grateful for today.
You said page 9, so I've just...
Oh, sorry, page 8, yeah. Don't even know my own book, how pathetic. Sorry, page 8.
How many do you have left?
I think 2. I always, if I bring less, Rob, I sell more. If I bring more, I never sell any. Okay, about another 30 seconds. Okay, while you're wrapping up, I'm just going to tell you something about my highlight of the day. I heard all those wonderful, grateful comments, and I'm so glad that Tony switched seats so that he could then say he was grateful for Patty after he was on the other side of her, which was great. And Nick, I'm grateful that hopefully she says yes, by the way. We want to have some gratitude for that. But the highlight of the day is something I'm almost as passionate about that as I am the daily number, because the daily number anchors you. I always look where I was yesterday, and then am I up or down from there? And I use halves too. But I can go back and see what happened to me on certain days, and what I want to do to duplicate the 9s or 9.5 or 10s, and what I want to do to stay away from the 4 or 5s. I woke up one day and I was about a 5. And I never live in that area. Even after all the things that happened to me, I thought something's dreadfully wrong. So I grabbed my journal, I went down to Starbucks, just didn't even take a shower, just threw on some sweats, wrote in my journal, it bumped me up to about a 6. I'm so grateful for my health, I'm so grateful for Connor and Kyle, I'm so grateful to have met the Barry Zimmermans of the world, who've introduced me to all these people, etc., etc. It just made me feel a little better, but I still wasn't quite right. I went up to Burlington to give a talk that day, about 200 people, and it's really exciting when people line up and after you're done and they want you to sign it in your books and journals. And this one gal comes up to me and she just is crying. She's got tears and she goes, "Can I give you a hug?" And I said, "Sure." And I said, "What's your name?" And she says, "Janice." And she goes, "You just changed my life." And I said, what did I say? She said, "I can't even talk about it. A couple of your stories. I just can't tell you how it related to me. And I may have been loss of a husband too, possibly." She says, "Can I get a couple more journals and things?" And she just gave me this big hug, and then there's a bunch of people, "Can we hurry up the line?" It was just hilarious. I mean, it's very, I kept thinking, are you sure, maybe, are they thinking I'm John Grisham? There must be some mistake here. You know, it's like, I'm just this guy just trying to spread this word about gratitude. But I got back in the car and I drove back to Seattle and I had the biggest smile on my face, and that was about a 9.5. And see, the thing about